So morning everybody, so this is my fourth vlog. So last week wasn't much of a productive week, not gonna lie. I wasn't very well the back end of the week, so concentration was not fully there, very difficult to concentrate. So what happened last week? So I took part in something called OT on the Move. So their tagline is, "We know that taking time out of the day is difficult due to work, studies and general life pressures. However, we hope to see you see the value of this and join us in creating a virtual place where we can connect with each other, share learning and be active." So these sessions are being held to help people connect with each other, but also to highlight the value of the OT role using sport and physical activity. So obviously that's very prevalent given my placement at the moment. So on that day I hadn't moved an awful lot, I'm not going to lie, that was the beginning of me feeling fairly terrible. So I was under the weather, I'd been sat at the desk at my computer. Admittedly, I did switch my camera off during the session. Nobody needs to see me trying to dance. I've got 2 left feet and limbs with a mind of their own. So the session was run by a student who I've been in communication with quite regularly throughout this placement, and that was with a dance coach as well. So they provided a 20-minute workout that addressed various levels of mobility via Zoom. So there was a little bit of lagging and freezing, but that's just the joys of a digital platform, isn't it? But overall it went well. To address all abilities, my only addition would be to consist of hearing impairment, so maybe include closed captions or potentially an interpreter. I'm not too sure how you would incorporate that into a Zoom meeting with music, with it being a dance session. Obviously there'd be a bit of a sound problem there to pick up on live closed captions. So yeah. However, following the session, personally I felt quite energised. It was quite a giggle. It was really nice to see other people, and overall I felt better for it and I felt a bit more productive thereafter. So yeah, that addresses that whole, feeling better for movement side of things. So that's something I've been asked to take part in. So next month, hopefully, I'll share it all with you if I do. So I'm currently having discussions with my on-site supervisor here at the sports facility to put something together, potentially boxing-based, kickboxing maybe, but not too sure as of yet. Who knows? But actually, as I'm talking, my mind's been ticking over, so I'm clearly feeling a bit better in comparison to last week, because this wouldn't have happened otherwise. I'm just sort of thinking in regards to the closed captions or whatever, that perhaps a 20-minute workout could be like pre-recorded, maybe. So you could do a screen share of a video rather than a sort of live performance, and that way we could put the closed captions in beforehand. And there's also the potential of having an interpreter, maybe. Food for thought, anyway. So last week completed some training. I say training, it's more of an overview guide really. So previously mentioned the All Our Health training that's available on e-learning for healthcare. I'll put the link in the description below, so if anyone's interested you can go and access it. And that links in with my sort of previous discussions around social prescribing. So the e-learning provides a brief education regarding all aspects of health and well-being, followed up by sort of like a little mini short test. It highlights the importance of having sort of a foundation knowledge of all aspects of health and well-being sort of thing. Picking up on the signs, addressing the issues, giving clients the support they need and providing signposting to the appropriate services. So that was really interesting because it actually sort of highlighted where my shortfalls in knowledge are as well. Can't all know everything all the time, can we? But it's good to have a basic bit to go on, I suppose. So this is my final week. I initially started off with a very large to-do list, for myself, addressing various aspects of accessibility within the facility I'm based at. The facility itself is actually very accessible, very few recommendations on that front. It's more about making the services they provide accessible for all, and raising awareness of what there is already accessible, and making people who it is available to aware of that accessibility. So in the last 4 weeks I've created some how-to documents and videos complete with closed captions. Unfortunately there wasn't an interpreter. I've not been able to find anybody to help me with that, and I am nowhere near proficient in BSL to do anything like that. I've also reached out to various departments within the university to establish lines of communication and to discuss student support to access the facilities, whether this is on a voluntary basis like a buddy system, or for those who are on healthcare or sports related studies, or those who are learning BSL or whatever, to be able to use their time spent as a student support towards their placement hours. This will be a conversation which will continue after I've completed my placement, due to it being a relatively short placement, but at least at the start. Also discussed and designed some a poster advertising the on-site provision of sports wheelchairs, something that I wasn't aware that was available here until I came. So obviously I haven't personally previously looked into that. Whether or not it's common knowledge, I don't know, so I figured there was no harm in addressing it. Also sort of address the accessibility of the gym. So in regards to actual getting around the gym, it's a pretty open space, like accessibility that way is not a problem. There are pieces of equipment that are designed for wheelchair users, and there are bits of equipment that are designed for people who are visually impaired. So there's tactile consoles, but they're not braille. So it's all very well having raised buttons and stuff like that, but if you are somebody who, you know, it's not as if start is raised, it's literally the start button is raised sort of thing. So how, you know, it's not the most accessible. So how could we address this? You know, we talked about sort of like the dynamo machines, the way you used to make the label makers with the raised lettering. You can get braille versions of those, so even something like that might be of benefit. If anyone's got any thoughts around that, do feel free to let me know. So this week my aim is to put together some media to demonstrate what equipment is accessible. I was supposed to make more of a start on that last week, but as I said, my productivity levels went fairly downhill the back end of the week due to illness. So yeah, put together some media to demonstrate what equipment is accessible in the gym, for that to be shared with relevant parties and to be put out via social media, so raising awareness, sort of aiming to address some of the perceived barriers around accessing the gym with a disability. So yeah, oh, and on a final note, I've received an email regarding these vlogs, thanking me for taking the time to add closed captions, as they've really helped that person to access these vlogs where they would have otherwise really like struggled to do so. So I really appreciate the feedback. Thank you very much. You know who you are. But I'm sure there are far more important and interesting vlogs and information pieces out there that would benefit from including closed captions or interpreters or whatever sort of thing, for those who would otherwise struggle. So it to me, that just sort of really highlighted the importance of ensuring accessibility to all. The fact that my little vlog got a thank you for including captions, so, you know, very lovely. So yeah, that's me, guys. Last week I will update you as to where I finish up and my recommendations I leave here at the end of it all. Thank you very much.